the sum of the small things, okay? And but before that, for the past few times that I've been preaching, maybe some of y'all don't know, but I've written out my whole script. And so what happened is, every time I preach, I look down, I cannot find where I ended. And so I keep skipping and skipping and skipping, and about 1/3 of what I prepare never gets preached. So this time I have used point form, but it still looks like it's a script. I don't know why. But anyway, we'll see how far we can go with this new format. If I missed anything, if you have feedback, Lionel, you know, when you say this, not very good, come and tell me. So I think in the church, iron sharpens iron, right? I am not above accountability and feedback. So as I try to find a way to perfect my sermon notes so I don't forget all the time, give me feedback. Okay, so before we start, the sermon will start with the children, okay? And so here, little children, hello, those outside. Where's Uncle Jimmy? Oh, okay. Uncle Jimmy has something very, very important to give you. He will be giving you this piece of paper, those outside. Now, today we will be talking about a very special person in the Bible. Who knows who this person is? Daniel. Okay, who knows? Is Daniel in Lion's Den? Okay. Who knows which chapter Daniel in the Lion's Den is found? Daniel chapter what? Wow, okay. But the competition isn't about answering my question. So this is a coloring contest, kids. If you want my son's biscuit, so son, if you want your biscuit back, you have to win this contest. I was like, I'll just take it. Okay, this is an Autoland printed biscuit. It says it's delicious and fun, okay? 24 names to learn. So if you want this, you got to color, okay? And Uncle Jimmy and Auntie Tricia will decide who has the best colored Daniel in the Lion's Den, okay? Color pencils are outside. You can go collect them. So you have until the time I finish preaching to finish your coloring. If I forget a lot of points, you have less time to color. So hopefully I remember everything I need to preach. The second and the most important prize is the winner will have your coloring work hung up. We will stick it somewhere behind. So you will experience eternal glory for a few months. Okay? So more than the biscuit, biscuit is transient. After one day, it's gone. Okay? But your work will be shown. So before that, you all know today's sermon is on Daniel chapter 6. Okay, Daniel chapter 6. But before we start, I don't want to talk about some of the small things, like what is cancelled. Today's sermon is about the sum of everything. And it is, in a way, a combination of what Pastor Johnny preached last week on stewardship and what Pastor Egan preached about, right? He talked about life in our revival weekend, if you were here, that a Christian walk is not about the big things. It's about the small things. And so today I'm going to clump both of them out. We are going to talk about stewardship, not about money, but about life, right? And we know life is really the sum of all the things that we do and we decide. Okay. Daniel chapter 6, 1-5. If you have your Bibles with me, I will invite you to read with me as we go into Daniel chapter 6, 1-5. Okay. When you're there, let me know. Okay, I'm reading from the ESV version. It says, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps would give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could not find no ground for complaint or any fault, because he was faithful and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, shall we not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God? And so before I start preaching, I'll invite all of you all to pray with me for God's wisdom. Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father in heaven, we thank you for this wonderful Sabbath day. And as we look into the book of Daniel, especially in Daniel chapter 6, Lord, I pray that the lessons that we learn from his life and from the Bible, your living word, Lord, would not just remain as intellectual knowledge, Lord. I pray that you open our hearts, that it will sit in our hearts and our minds, Lord. May it transform us to be more and more like you. So, Father, cleanse me. May my words be your words. May my thoughts be your thoughts. In your most precious name I pray. Amen. So over here, we have Daniel under the reign of King Darius. Now, if you know history properly, this is a new chapter in Daniel's life, right? Let's recap what happened to Daniel's life before that. It starts off when he was a young man. Now, Daniel, at this point, he's in his 80s. Right, so when he was younger, what happened? There was a king called, not King Darius, King Nebuchadnezzar. Remember King Nebuchadnezzar and the kingdom of Babylon. So Daniel started off as a Jew in Jerusalem, conquered. He was one of the brightest in his country. He was taken because under King Nebuchadnezzar, he prided intelligence, he prided knowledge, and he knew it would be a waste to kill everyone that was smart. So he gathered all the wise men. We know it's the wise men. He gathered all of, and Daniel and his 3 other friends were selected to be part of King Nebuchadnezzar's court and his wise men. And we know of the story. If you've been giving Bible study, I think it's the first or the second. It's always one of the few. We talk about prophecy, right? That's where we are introduced to prophecy. King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. And he's really disturbed, he's really upset because, and he tells his wise men, tell me the dream and tell me what it means. And all the wise men couldn't tell him. And he was so mad, he says, then why do I keep wise men? He wanted to kill all of them. And so Daniel comes into the story, he deciphers this statue, the story, the vision that he has of the statue, made of gold, of silver, then of bronze, of iron, and then of iron and clay. And he tells King Nebuchadnezzar what it means. And King Nebuchadnezzar is so impressed. He sets him, he promotes him, right? And before that even happened, there was another fiasco with his diet. King Nebuchadnezzar, the head eunuch, wanted them to eat the king's food, but he said, no, I will not eat. I will eat. And he challenged the eunuch. He said, give me fruits and vegetables, and I will eat, and we'll see who is more healthy in 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, him and his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were found to look better than the rest, more healthy. And so, again, another testimony in the kingdom of Babylon. And then after that, what happens? That was not all, but that's mostly what we focus on. So King Nebuchadnezzar, thinking of this statue, decides, you know what, I'm going to make a statue of gold. Not just the head of gold, but everything of gold. And then he says, everyone must bow down to worship this statue when you hear the trumpet call. And so this is not about Daniel, but his 3 friends refused. They were thrown in the furnace. And King Nebuchadnezzar was so angry because they rebuked him. They still reprimanded him in a way. He said, even if you kill us, we will not bow down. He was so angry. he increased the flame. He ordered the flames of the furnace to be increased 7 times. So the people that were throwing them in passed away from the fire. They were all burned, but the 3 friends didn't burn. Right? We know that story. And then after that, there was another vision of King Nebuchadnezzar and the great tree that will be cut down and there will be a ring around it. But God would have sustained it. And that was King Nebuchadnezzar, right? We know about the story of how he then he lost his senses. He had to crawl around like an animal. But after 7, I believe was a period of 7 times, he was restored. And it was at that point that King Nebuchadnezzar humbled himself. And he moved from just believing in Daniel's God to making God his God. And the chapter of King Nebuchadnezzar closes of him worshipping God. And he set a precedence that Daniel's God is the one true God. And then that was chapter 4. Chapter 5 was about King Nebuchadnezzar's son, Belshazzar. They were making merry, they were enjoying their time. He knew about all the things that King Nebuchadnezzar had shared and gone through, but still he refused. And so we know about the writing on the wall. Many tekau pares, right? It means you have been found, God has seen your kingdom, and he will put an end to it. You have been weighed in balances and found wanting, and finally what? Your kingdom will be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That was chapter 5. And one thing very important that I think maybe we missed out. On hearing that, what does the king announce? He announces that Daniel will be the 3rd ruler of Babylon. But on that same night that he announced Daniel will be the 3rd ruler of Babylon, what happened? King Darius comes, the Medes comes, and the Persians was King Cyrus, but Medes comes and he takes over Babylon and kills Belshazzar. And so actually after Belshazzar dies, who should be the rightful ruler? Daniel, right? But now Darius takes over. And so we don't know much about King... Okay, wow. Okay, so these are everything that I've shared so far. Okay, the 3 kingdoms, the diet, the vision of the great statue, the furnace, vision of the great tree, King Nebuchadnezzar humbled by the writing on the wall and then declared the next ruler of Babylon. Now, we are in King Darius. We don't know how the Medes run their country. Very little historical information is given, archaeological findings. But one thing we know was that he placed in what we read in chapter 6, he placed 120 satraps over the kingdom. Now, what are satraps? When I first read this, I was like, okay, satraps are just governors. But if you understand the word satraps in Aramaic, Akesh Dapa. Okay, I have no idea how to read Aramaic. But what it really literally means is princes. The satraps were of royal blood. They were not just, capable people put in charge. They were satraps, they were royal, they were called princes. And what does Darius do? He makes Daniel one of the 3 high officials over these 120 satraps. And so Daniel, the potential rightful ruler of Babylon, is made one of the big 3 in charge of these princes. Now think about it. How would you feel if you're Daniel? We read in verse 4, right, just now. They says, the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom, but they could find no ground of complaint or fault because he was faithful and no error or fault was found among him. So we have and worse still, if we continue to read, King Darius wanted him to be put above these 3 officials. He was now going to be number 1. Who in their right mind puts the future ruler of a kingdom you have just conquered to be in charge of the kingdom you just conquered. You are setting up a scenario for a coup, right? Never mind that Daniel was amazing. You know, before I worked for the church, my first job was this company called EPS International. When I first started, it was called EPS Singapore. It's a Japanese contract research organization. It stands for Ever Progressing System, right? But because they were on a stock in Japan, we knew the real meaning was earnings per share, right? For all your, it's like EPS, like let's be real, it's about earnings per share. And so it was a Japanese company. My first job, and I was really lucky. So I reported straight to the managing director of the company. And my position was assistant, project management assistant, yes. So that was my first job. And for my whole working career, save for 6 months before I joined the church, I worked under the same boss in 2 different companies. But she was an amazing boss, came out of her university in Taiwan. She worked for Taiwan Adventist Hospital as her first job. And so when I told her I was Adventist, she's like, you don't work on the Sabbath and you don't drink coffee. I was like, yes, okay, this boss knows too much about Adventists, right? And so every time I had no problems with Sabbath, but sometimes on Sunday I had to work, right? Well, I'll share a lot more about that, the whole challenges I had. But after working for 1 year, what happened was our company under her leadership for 10 years, so I joined at 8th year, was churning out. We were the top value-added company for 10 years in a row. So every year, our profits were increased by 200% at least. So you can imagine 2 to the percent of how many. The issue was our manpower was at 14 people. So the founder of the company would visit us at least once every 6 months. And if you understand Japanese culture, to have a non-Japanese in charge is a bit weird. It's different, right? And so what happens is our big boss comes in one day and he tells us, I have a dream. It's time to not be Japanese. It's time to go international. And so within 1 month, our company name will go from Ever Progressing EPS Singapore Private Limited to EPS International. And what happened is Korea, China, Malaysia, Taiwan office were all consolidated under our Singapore office. And so 14 of us suddenly had to manage 140 other staff across Southeast Asia. And that's when I learned how to manage my boss. She is brilliant, but she was a really difficult person. She starts working at 3 a.m. every day. So by the time I reach office at 7:30, I will have about 10 to 15 emails of instructions from her every day. That's where my hair turned white, and it has not gone back ever since. But what happened after that was we consolidated Asia, and now the dream was to go to US, right, and Europe. And so how I know this was top secret, but our boss comes in, I sit down with her, together with the founder, and he says, look for a company to buy in the US. So we were going to M&A. But what little did we know, to go into the US, he wanted someone with US roots. And so he hired a new CEO in charge of EPS International. And when the guy came on board, we knew we were in trouble. Within 2 months, he hired a new director of finance, director of HR, and we could see how my boss would slowly be pushed out of the company, right? You cut her influence, you cut her power. And I experienced firsthand, over 6 months, how a takeover happens, right? It can be peaceful, but it's never peaceful, right? Someone has to go. And so one day she will come to me and says, Lionel, I need to talk to you. And then I go in, and then she's like, I'm going to tender my resignation. And I was like, oh no, okay, I have to work for this other boss that I don't really like. But she gave me her personal Skype. She gave me her new mobile number. She says, any problem, you call me. And so even though I was working for a new boss for 6 months, I couldn't stand it. After that, I quit. Every 2 weeks, I will meet her at the Starbucks downstairs, and she will still continue to mentor me. And so through the whole way, everything I've learned in corporate life, soft skill training, everything was from her. But the point I'm trying to make is there is very little reason in a new dynasty to keep the top dog. Because Daniel would be the biggest threat to Darius. And here, Darius isn't some dumb 60-year-old. He's 60 years old. He's not stupid. You don't conquer the rest of the world being stupid. So why would you keep Daniel? And you think about Daniel, it really feels bad, right? Imagine it was one of you. You're one of Daniel. You get promoted. You are faithful to God. You're about to get the position, you know. You're like, I'm going to make it. And it's taken from you, right? And then you go, okay, God, I will be faithful. I will serve this new king. And you slowly make your way up. And now your colleagues want to kill you, literally. It's horrible to be successful in Daniel's. Think about it. It's not easy. The question is, how does Daniel still continue to be so amazing despite his setbacks? You can say he's brilliant. It's not really a setback. Well, at that level, I don't know. If it was me, I don't think I can take it. Right? You get promised something, then you get unpromised something, then you get promised something, and then now everyone wants to kill you. And maybe for him, he wished King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? The statue fully of gold would have taken place. Because if it was full gold, he would be the king. But at the same time, he knows that vision came from God. So the question I have is why there isn't more Daniels around. There are 3 reasons why I think there isn't more Daniels. And today, for the rest of the sermon, we're just going to look at these 3 points. And after that, we are done. The first is we focus on the what, but we don't understand the how. Why is our life not more like Daniel? It's because we focus on the what, but we don't understand the how. What do I mean? Well, everyone kind of has similar goals, don't we? We want to be, maybe we want to be financially independent. We want to have good, loving relationships. We want to be a good father if you're a dad. We want a good mother if you're a mom. We want to have good colleagues. We want to be active in church. We want to be close to God. We want to be healthy. We want to have a six-pack. We want to look in the mirror and like what we see. Everyone has roughly the same goals. And so every time it comes to New Year resolution, everyone kind of wants the same thing. I want to move up. I want to be better. But the truth is, despite all of us having kind of the same goals, the diversity of the result is quite apparent, isn't it? There's some people that really, they blow it out of the water and they make it. Some, they end up angry and jaded. So we focus on the what, our goal, but we don't understand how are we going to get there. And there is this book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. He says really, really nicely, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Now what is this? You're like, Pastor, this is a sermon. Why are you talking about systems? This is not an engineering lecture. Okay? What this means is you don't always rise to the occasion of what you set up to achieve. You always settle to your habits, to your daily system. So that is the first. Now, If you look at Daniel, he didn't have big personal dreams. He didn't think one day I'm going to be the next ruler of Babylon, so I'm going to pray to God to help me decipher this dream or what. His system was very clear. What was his system? I will eat healthy, I will glorify God in whatever I do. That was his system. And so in everything that he did, yes, he had goals. There were targets, there were KPIs, I bet, in that kingdom. But all he did was, I will pray 3 times a day, as we'll learn later on. I will eat healthy, and that was it. So he always settled to the level of his systems. But the thing about Daniel was, his level of his systems was so high that no one could find any fault in his life. It was just that high. How do you get to that level of systems? We will talk about it more. But for Daniel, it was praying, right? And we don't catch him in his writings going, you know what, God, I'm so tired. You think running a country is easy? King Nebuchadnezzar, every time he doesn't get what he wants, he gets mad, he wants to kill people, and I have to go tell him about the dream about the tree, he's going to kill me. But you don't catch Daniel doing that. All he does is, he goes back and he prays. And then he does it. Is he scared? He's definitely scared. We don't catch Jesus complaining in the Gospels, right? But I just don't have the time to pray. Do you look at my 12 disciples? They just keep fighting. Oh man, Peter, James, and John, they just want to know who is number 2. They think I'm here to conquer the Roman Empire when I'm here to deliver the world. What is wrong? God, I need to spend more time in sleep so I don't lose my temper during the day when I have to deal with these 12 disciples. I can't even, younger people know what this means. Things Jesus never said. And so, even with Jesus, he never fell below his level. His level of systems was that high. Now, some of you, you want to save more money, right? You don't save more money by thinking of saving more money. You save more money by what? By having a system. I will spend less money on bubble tea every week, right? Maybe 1 cup of koi is $4.50. So if I need to save $100, how do you save $100? You don't tell yourself, save $100, save $100. Focus on the goal, $100, $100. At the end of the month, I have saved $100. You cut $100 off your expenditure in any way or form, and you save $100. You create a system, right? So that's the first. Now the second point is this. So you're saving $100. This is the second point. Why we are not more like Daniel. We don't see progress fast enough. I have a confession to make. About 2-3 months ago, I wanted to get more fit. And so what I did was, I told myself, I'm going to start doing 30 push-ups every day. Okay, so I did it for the first day. I did 30 push-ups. I was like, oh, so tired. And then what happened was, at night, I caught a flu. I think I shared it in Bible prayer meeting. And I told myself, because I did that 30 push-ups, I felt sick. My body cannot take that kind of stress. Eric's looking at me like, your health goal for this year, watch out. Okay? And so after that, I was like, I'm too sick to do 30 push-ups. And I stopped. Okay? And about 1 month, 2 weeks ago, I started. And every morning I will do 30 push-ups. My son will laugh at me because he thinks I'm doing some weird dance. And then he starts nodding. He said, because I'm doing push-ups. He's like, you can do it, Daddy. And I don't know, maybe that's my motivation. But I have been doing 30 push-ups. The first 2 days is fine. And then after muscle ache comes in, oh, I tell you. But isn't that true? And I look in the mirror, I was like, I look the same. I feel worse. Who wants to do 30 push-ups? It's like the stupidest idea you ever had, right? We don't see progress fast enough. Did you know 92% of all New Year's resolutions don't make it past Valentine's Day? So if you told your spouse, honey, I will be more fit, there is a 92% chance she'll be upset at you during Valentine's Day because you stopped your regimen, right? Maybe you started running, and after a week you look in the mirror, you go like, it's the same, but my body feels like it's dying. And then you go on a weighing scale, and you put on 0.5 kg, and you go, ah! Done. You don't see results fast enough. Or maybe you have a housing loan. Everyone here kind of has a housing loan, right? My flat costs $400,000 when I bought it. And every month after installment, we try to minimize this debt. And so maybe I tell myself, like earlier, I'm going to cut costs. I'm going to drink less bubble tea. And so I drink less bubble tea, and I save $70. Well, guess what? Now I owe $399,930. Didn't make a dent in my housing loan. Why do I even try to save? Maybe it's more spiritual. You try to seek God 10 minutes each day. So every morning you wake up, you pray, ask God for patience, you ask God for wisdom. For 10 minutes, you pray and read the Bible. And Sunday to Friday, you do well. And then on Sabbath morning, you wake up and you go, kids, it's time to go to church. And your kids go, must go, very tired, Daddy. And then you lose all your patience, right? Forget everything you pray about and make me a better person. You go, you better go to church. And then on the way to church, you go like, what kind of person have I become? And you ask God, did that 6 days of quiet time, 10 minutes, really help me that much? We don't see results fast enough. And so we make this conclusion. The small good decisions we make don't matter because we don't see the results fast enough. Isn't that true? Maybe you are trying to start this God-honoring habit, and after 1 month, there's no benefits. You go like, I'm still in the same circumstance, in the same rut that I'm in. And conversely, because of that, we do the opposite, right? Maybe some of you younger ones, because you try and you fail, now you are going to stay up until 3 a.m. playing computer games. And you go to school the next day like a zombie, right? And the teacher just goes, hey, why do you look so tired? Wake up. That's it. Or maybe you feel bad, your whole body is aching because you try to exercise and you see no difference, and you look at that pint of Haagen-Dazs macadamia ice cream in your fridge, and you decide to just spoil yourself for a while, and you end up eating the whole pint. And then you look in the mirror and you go, I still look the same before I ate the ice cream. Or someone gave you a box of chocolates and you ate half the box of chocolates. You look in the mirror after you eat a half of box of chocolates, do you still look the same? You look the same, right? And maybe you sleep late for work, you don't do your homework, your work, and your boss just goes, oh, okay, just hand it up tomorrow, right? And you tell yourself, something clicks in your head. Similarly to the small good decisions don't matter. The bad decisions that I make don't have that big a repercussion in my life, isn't it? And so we miss this huge truth in our life, is that our life is the sum of all things. Everything, the big and especially the small, the good and the bad. And so, yes, maybe you look in the mirror, I look in the mirror, I look the same. I tell you, my back is aching. My hands hurt. Just now I had to pray. I kneel down, my legs started to hurt so fast. It was difficult. But you know it's good for you, and you continue. Right? My boss One of the first lessons she taught me was this: rubbish in, rubbish out. She said this was the first lesson she learned in statistical class in university. She said, Lionel, I was quite lazy then when I first started working for her. So this was the first scolding, quote unquote, I got for her. She said, rubbish in, rubbish out. You put rubbish in your work, don't expect it to come out better than rubbish. And then she threw the word and said, go and do it again. It was meeting minutes. My meeting minutes was so summarized, no one could take any action on it. So she was so mad. I remember she said, rubbish in, rubbish out. Isn't that the same in a lot of things in life? You are what you put in. That's why for us, like in our church council, it says, watch what you watch on the television. What you put in comes out in some way. Rubbish in, rubbish out. Now I end this point with one analogy. It's like making fried chicken, disciplines. Or if you really like fried chicken, we don't call it fried chicken, we call it fried chicken. When you first put on heat on the oil is getting hot. You can't see the oil getting hot. It looks exactly the same, right? And then you take out the chicken from the fridge and you cut it. It looks ugly and disgusting. And some of the vegetarians are looking at me like, yeah, it's disgusting. Okay, this is just an analogy, okay? And then you have to put the seasoning flour first, right? Don't ask me why I know so much about how to make fried chicken. You have the seasoning flour, right? You put the salt, the pepper, the spices, and then you coat it. How does the chicken look at that point? It still looks bad. And then you put it in the egg wash, right? How does it look then? It still looks bad. And then you put it in a top coat. And you look at it, it still looks bad. And then you look at the oil. It might be hot. But if you want good fried chicken, you never bring the oil to a boil, right? So it's always simmering. At what point does it become amazing? When the oil becomes hot enough and the ugly piece of chicken with 2 coats of flour, 1 coat of egg gets thrown inside. And suddenly you see the bubbles, right? And suddenly the whole kitchen smells like fried chicken, and now the children and everyone's going, I want some fried chicken, I want some fried chicken. And that is where the explosion happens. And everyone will only come to you at that point when the chicken is frying and goes, how did you do it? How did you achieve this level of fitness? It took years and years of a consistent habit to get there. Every single overnight success, like I watch YouTube, I watch Elon Musk, right? He's one of the guys that I follow. He worked and slept in his office for 1 year before he came out with PayPal. Sold it away, started Tesla, almost went bankrupt with SpaceX. But we look at them for the success they had. I remember an interview with Bill Gates. He said he would stay up 4 nights a week programming. And to get a code within, 30K of space was a challenge at that time. But he would do that. And we see him for the billionaire. We see these guys for the success they have, but we don't see that before they became that, they were putting the hard yards and the grind in day after day after day. Rain or shine, they did it. It's the same with Daniel. We read his story of Darius, and we go, hey, how did he become number 1? Wow, this guy has done it again. God has blessed him. But you don't see the discipline. Every day without fail, 3 times a day, he would stop his work. Like it's easy to stop your work, leave the office, and where would he go? He would go home and he would pray by the window. Every single day. It's not easy. But in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, Paul puts it in a nicer way other than my fried chicken analogy. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. let us not give up spending that 10 minutes with God every morning. Even though maybe you will end up losing your temper at your kids on Sabbath, continue. Let us not returning faithfully to God, because at the time, you will see that it makes you a better person. Let us not give up trying to exercise. Let us not give up or go weary trying to be more patient, to forgive, to even spend time with those that are important to your family. Because, like for Trisha and I, it's hard in our life right now to spend time with our oldest son, with our youngest kid. But we know if we don't spend the time with him when he grows up in his teenage years, I will see the repercussions of my neglect. It's very clear. And so this is the second point. Right? We think small, good decisions don't matter. The third and last point that I want to make is this. Our distorted identity sabotages our success. What does this mean? From the beginning of time, when you look at Adam and Eve, the issue was not just about sin. They saw themselves as sinners, and the next thing they did was they hid. They hid in the bush. And humanity has been hiding from God ever since then. And the Garden of Eden, God came finding them. It was God that was always finding humanity and us hiding because we feel naked and inadequate. And so, let's read Daniel chapter 6, verse 10. It says, when Daniel knew that the document had been signed. What document was signed? The document that was signed was the document that would say that everyone had to worship King Darius. He knew that document was a sabotage document, and what did he do? He did what he always did. He just went home to the same place where his windows, his upper chamber of his house pointed where? Towards Jerusalem. And he got down on his knees and prayed 3 times a day, as he had done previously. Over here, if you continue to read some books on habits, you know that this is what we call a keystone habit. Daniel's keystone habit was that he would pray 3 times a day. Your keystone habit can be something else, spiritual habit. But every time you do it, you can build another good habit out of it. Because he prayed 3 times a day, he remembered what? He belonged to God and his body belonged to God. And so he could overcome the first temptation of the king's food. I remember, there is no way you can forget if you're praying 3 times a day. Maybe you're tempted for breakfast and you overcome it. And then lunch comes, guess what? You're going to pray again to remember. And so this was Daniel's keystone habit, on top of which every other habit was built on top of it. Right? Because he prayed, instead of looking for a way to escape impending death, when King Nebuchadnezzar was crying out and saying, I'm going to kill all the wise men, he had time. He could say, King Nebuchadnezzar, give me some time to decipher, pack his bags and zao during the time that King Nebuchadnezzar gave him. But he prayed. Maybe he got promoted in the morning and he started to think, not bad, I think I'm doing quite well in this new kingdom of Babylon. Well, guess what? At lunch, he will be praying and thanking God for all the successes. And so, the prosperity, the blessings, the success that were given to him could never stick on him long enough, because 3 times a day, it was given back to God. And the last part, I think, when we read this verse, is that Daniel knew that whichever kingdom he was, king of Medo-Persia, king of Babylon, that was not his home. That's why his chamber, he always prayed looking towards Jerusalem. The issue we have right now is our identity. Who do you see yourself as right now? If you see yourself as just a worldly human being, and this world is your home, it's only natural that you try to get on top of the game. in this life. But like Daniel, every time he prayed, his eyes were towards Jerusalem. And for us, I think no matter what habit you do, maybe it can be fitness, about my financial freedom, maybe you're in debt, you have problem controlling finances, maybe it's your time, you can't manage it well enough, maybe it's your temper, you can't manage it well enough. It could be anything. But the one important thing is your eyes always focus on our New Jerusalem. That every day, at the end of the day, I know why I'm going to wake up the next day. And I know how I want to further my life. And the theme for our church this year, you all have heard it, is deeper. This is a sample of our new church bulletin. This side is the front page, this is the back, so we'll print it like that at 4. But if you've been in church frequently, you know that our church is going through a rough time. This is not the best of seasons for Maranatha Church. We have been plagued with losses, a lot of sadness, a lot of trying times in our prayer, pleading to God. Every Wednesday we come together, a group of us, and there's never short of prayer requests and things to pray about. If we are to grow deeper, I took the liberty of making Faith add a text at the back of the page. It says, Jeremiah 17 verse 8. He is like a plant watered by water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when the heat comes, for its leaves remain green. It is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. The whole point of building strong spiritual habits is not for good times. It is when the bad times hit. If your roots have grown strong enough, if you have disciplined yourself, your habits, your mind, your body to withstand, in times of difficulty, you will still continue to bear fruit. And that is the life of Daniel. No matter what you throw at him, he will continue to bear fruit. And so, my hopes and my concluding statement is, maybe for you, you're like me, you tried to do 30 push-ups, you fell sick, and then you gave up. But you start and you try again. I've been going for 3 weeks straight. Let's not jinx it. Hopefully, I will continue. And one day, in some church retreat, you all will see me with a six-pack. Try, huh? Whoever wants to get fit, you can join me every morning. We'll message each other. It's time to do your 30 push-ups. For some of you, maybe it's time to spend less on things you don't really need. To learn to be humble, to train yourself and go, do I really need that? Maybe it's for some of us, we've been spending so much time with work, trying to make it out there. We've lost touch with our family. And maybe it's time for you to go, hey, let's start family worship. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. Start small. It doesn't need to be big, right? Maybe for some of you, it's time to attend a care group on Friday night. Instead of just telling yourself, my whole week has been tired, I need to spend time alone, and you surf the net until don't know what time and you can't wake up on Sabbath morning, maybe it's time for you to. For some of you, maybe your habit is, after church potluck, I'm going home, and that's it. Maybe it's time to be more active in church, just once a month. This week, our church has started a new cycle. If you've followed us in our business meeting, today is the third Sabbath. Our church aims to do visitation on the third Sabbath of every month. Look around. Maybe your friend's not here. Or maybe your friend's not awake yet. Message the person and say, hey, you're missing from church. If you don't come to church, we are going to find you this afternoon. You know, there are many habits that we can grow. I'm not here to say only start with praying. But definitely prayer is one of the most powerful habits any Christian can develop. And so, I will conclude with a verse that I learned from fast. It says, let us spur one another on towards love and good deeds. Let us not give up being together, as some are in the habit of doing so. And all the more as what? As we see the day approaching. Brothers and sisters, my hope and my wish is that 1 year from now, we will look back and we will have at least one new spiritual habit. And so when a drought hits us again, we will always continue to bear fruit. God be with all of you. Amen.